Welcome to Home Remodeler Toolbox, the podcast dedicated to empowering remodelers and builders to build and grow successful businesses. Join your host, Bob Vance, founder of Home Remodeler SEO, as he brings you industry insights and strategies that will help you build a thriving business, no matter what level you're at in your business. Whether you're a thriving multi-million-dollar business or you're working on building your business from the foundation up, this podcast is your go-to source for industry secrets and actionable strategies that you can implement in your business to get to that next level. So, turn on, tune in, and let's help you build your business foundation one building block at a time.
In this episode of the Home Remodeler Toolbox, we're joined by Eric Goranson, a seasoned kitchen and bath designer with over 35 years of experience, whose career uniquely bridges remodeling, media, and business consulting. From his early days in radio and TV production to running one of Seattle's largest design firms, Eric has navigated the highs and lows of the remodeling industry. Along the way, he's learned invaluable lessons about scaling a business, maintaining profit margins, fostering strong vendor relationships, and the hard truths that come from both failures and successes. Eric brings a wealth of practical insight for remodelers looking to grow sustainably. He dives into topics ranging from building repeatable systems, saying no to mismatched clients, harnessing the power of referrals, to leveraging media and AI thoughtfully in business operations. Whether sharing creative marketing tactics, post-project follow-up strategies, or the evolution of his new TV show Around the House Northwest, Eric's focus remains on helping home improvement professionals thrive, build trust, and learn from both wins and missteps. Stay tuned as we bring you lessons, inspirations, and actionable advice from a true industry veteran.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast today. Eric, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on, brother.
Thanks, Bob. Looking forward to this. Always a great time talking with you.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to some of the insights you share today. Not only, this popular media personality, but you got a lot of experience and with the in the speaking realm and presenting at the expos and being in design and remodeling. So I'm looking forward to hearing a lot that you have to share today.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to it.
Why don't we start with kind of your background, because you've crossed so many bridges in your life from starting out in media to going into the remodeling realm and design, and now back getting ready to produce your own show. So why don't we just back it up a little bit and let you start from the beginning?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm a certified kitchen designer. Been doing kitchen and bath stuff for about 35 years now, but it's funny, our paths are always kind of a winding road. And I started out doing media in high school. I was always a hard worker. I started working at age 14 at McDonald's, cooking fries and burgers and that kind of stuff. And because my parents went, hey, if you want a car, you better fix one yourself and buy it. So they wanted me to learn it the hard way, and worked out well. I had a muscle car that I'd bought from my dad and rebuilt the motor. And my dad was a big part of my life as far as my home improvement and design and remodeling journey, because he was a hands-on guy. And, we were either restoring cars or working on stuff around the house. It was really interesting because, he was a nuclear physicist, worked for the CIA and nuclear counterintelligence guy, but also wore the tool belt pretty well too. So we had a lot of fun that way. But really my first thing doing, I remember as a kid really kind of getting involved with stuff, was the first season of watching This Old House. And my dad, got a hold of the TV station, had a set of blueprints shipped out for that first project that aired nationally, which I think was season 2. And I sat there at like age 8 or 9, looking at blueprints, just watching the show, trying to figure out what they were doing. And I think that's kind of where that seed started to get into that, and ironically, I took wood shop as a kid, but I took radio TV production in high school. And I was my senior in high school. I was working at the local country station / sports talk station. It was one of the first sports talk stations in the country. And I was on the original broadcast team for the minor league hockey which was the Tri-City Americans, a WHL franchise. I was the producer of the hockey games. And so I was either on the countryside after school or working with the hockey stuff. So it was a lot of fun. And then I realized I was going to starve to death doing that. So I could make more money at my McDonald's job that I was doing part-time. So got into working at a home improvement store. First one was really an Ernst Hardware, which was a West Coast, kind of Northwest small hardware store, kind of like what you'd see in Ace Hardware is today. And then later on went working for a company that was a beautiful home improvement store. It was called Eagle Hardware. It was a store that was on the West Coast that Lowe's eventually bought. But I started doing kitchen and bath design in there, and it was a really nice store. Take a home center like Lowe's or Home Depot and put in polished floors and beautiful lighting, and instead of having a hardware aisle, there were like 8 hardware aisles. And so they were really about finding that small piece, that small part. And they had experts in there, like the guy working in the electrical aisle was a retired electrician. And there was a locksmith in-house. And it was a really cool kind of nice hardware store chain that was a little warehouse, but it was really luxury too.
Interesting. Different model, that kind of old school model that now it's just everything's big box stores and kids work in the aisles and don't even really have any experience at anything that you're looking to accomplish, on the job.
Yeah, and I think that model has a great opportunity to come back. I think if one of the stores turns around and says, because our public is getting less intelligent on home improvement projects, not more. And that's because, of course, a lot of those trade schools are gone. So many people walk into that hardware store going, I don't even know what I need. And I think if someone was to turn around and do that, it would give these big box stores a run for their money. Because, again, that level of help, sometimes that expert was the garden expert, even though you're looking for a plumbing expert, and they were the garden expert yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But really my path came from there. And so I was an aggressive kitchen and bath guy. I was out there. I was bidding on school projects. I mean, I landed a huge Catholic high school, all the cabinetry for the new building. And I was doing all these things that you didn't see home centers do. I was taking on commercial projects, and I was on commission too. So I made great money. I was making more money one year than the store manager did, because I was out selling cabinets, and, we were getting store of the year because I was out, selling, probably back in the late 90s. I was probably selling $500,000 in cabinets a year out of that little place, and
Wow.
doing really well. And then they sell to Lowe's. And so that's got interesting. Lowe's wanted to be out on the West Coast. They said, hey, we're going to buy this chain up, and they were converting over to Lowe's store. Well, I realized nothing's going to change, which is the first rule that they lied. Any company that's getting bought out, everything's going to change no matter what. And
Yep.
so I thought, I'm going to have some fun. So, I didn't have the internet like we do now, where you could just get on and do a Google search. So I called up a store out in North Carolina going, hey, I'm thinking about transferring out there, and I'm an Eagle Hardware here. We're getting bought out, by you guys. What's your commission rate? How do you guys deal with spiffs? And what's your commission rate on cabinets? And the guy laughed and goes, oh, we don't have any of that. And that was my sign to get out, because I'm like, that's going to cut like 65% of my payout.
Yep.
At the same time, Home Depot was coming into the market, and they couldn't find a kitchen designer for their Eastern Washington store that I was living in. So I told them what I made, and they kind of went, holy smokes, you make that? And I showed them my W-2 for the last year and went, there we go. If you meet it, I'll do it. And so I worked for them for literally a year. They paid for my certified kitchen designer to get my CKD through the NKBA. And I worked there for 366 days, and then started working for luxury kitchen and bath, dealers all around the Seattle area after I moved up there.
Okay. And so you were working for some of the big corporate brands, but then you decided to kind of open your own company as well and travel that path, which we all know is not the easiest of paths to travel.
It's not. I went from Home Depot, which was kind of, your entry level cabinetry stuff, really. And then I went to the exact opposite, which was me, wearing a suit and a tie, working in downtown Seattle for one of the highest end, kitchen and bath firms on the West Coast dealing with celebrities and stuff in the area and hand drafting everything. And it was really wild to go from kind of low end to high end, but it was a good experience for me to really learn how to deal with the high end clientele. And then I worked for other cabinet shops around the area. One of them is a major manufacturer now, but I did a high rise with them where I was doing, 24 floors of high end condo in Bellevue, Washington. And then went, before I started my own company, I thought, hey, I know this really well. I'm going to go help businesses from remodelers to house building companies to cabinet shops turn their businesses around, because I had done that for a couple other companies. And I went, hey, I kind of like this. Let's get the ship, righted and get it going. I did that, but that had its own struggles trying to go into a company that was making really poor decisions on the financial side and trying to get them to be, fiscally responsible and get the ship back uprighted.
Yeah. Kind of the business makeover instead of the house makeover.
I was remodeling companies, and the hardest thing to realize is that when a business owner won't take accountability for their bad decisions, as soon as you get it turned around and say, cool, I'm moving on to the next one, they go right back to it again. And it's like watching the bar rescue or the restaurant rescues. Many of these owners are just so stuck in their ways into going back and doing it. I had one time that we had turned this huge, remodeling company around that was their own cabinet shop. They'd been around for 35 plus years in the Seattle area. And we had worked a year on a business plan. They went from almost foreclosure to having the building paid off in 2 years. And when we had everything righted, everything was beautiful. He took the 6-inch binder with the business plan in a board meeting, dropped it in the trash can and said, now we get back to business, guys. Thanks for getting it turned around. And a year later, I watched my desk at an auction after I'd left, because I turned my resignation notice in that day, and there they went again. So
yeah,
that's when I decided I needed to really start my own business. And that had a lot of lessons to be learned as well. It's one thing being the consultant coming in and helping things. It's another to try to do something innovative yourself and to go out and try to break the mold.
right. Well, and you had some challenges with your business partner, right? Where things didn't always go so well.
Hindsight is 2020. And I had a business partner who I trusted, but I was not smart enough, and I put this on myself, to do some research. If I would have gone online and started looking at public records requests and things like that, I would have noticed a long history of lawsuits against these people for, taking advantage of customers, of business partners, that kind of stuff. And I tell you what, when you have a minority business partner and you show up at your business one day and the locks have been changed and they've taken it over, you can't call the police and say someone stole my business. Now you're in for $100,000 of lawyer fees and stuff, and you have to litigate it out. And that just gets completely ugly, and nobody wins except the attorneys.
Right. Yeah.
And so I learned a lot of lessons with that. At the same point, I learned a lot of lessons because I had the largest design firm in the Seattle market, in the metropolitan area. I had 13 designers working for me at one time. And we were cranking out, $4 or $5 million a year in cabinetry out of a little tiny house, like an 800 square foot house in Redmond, Washington, down the street from Microsoft.
And so you think you're doing great, right? 13 designers pumping out millions of dollars. But I remember talking with you, and you said that the profit margins weren't where they needed to be. And that's kind of when you really figured out that, do I really need to be this big? How can we streamline this and create more profit with less headaches, right?
Scale matters, and bigger is not always better, especially in that business climate, because there are some difficulties there that aren't in many other states. For instance, they have a sales tax model that every little municipality has their own sales tax rate. There's a base sales tax rate, and then that city, county, or whatever can charge on top of that. So you could have 2.5 percentage points difference on a sales tax rate directly across the street. So every sale had to be tracked. Every little transaction had to have an address attached to it. And you had to double check those with the state database. And that number was always changing. So literally when it would come in, there wasn't it's the 1st of July, everything changes. If somebody passed something in one of the many different sales tax rates, you had to be careful of it, or you could get fined by the state for filling in and sending in the wrong tax rate for this. And then that would trigger audits and everything else. So it was, the more people you had on the sales staff, the more accounting staff you had to have. And on top of that, I made more with 6 designers than I did with 13 great ones. And it just didn't scale out. The headaches would basically just kind of double up, triple up. And it was quite the thing to manage because, I mean, we were spending back then, which was, probably 15 years ago, we were spending $150,000 a year just in radio advertising.
Wow.
But I had one guy that just answered the phones and dished out leads. That was his full-time job.
Yep. What do you think goes wrong when I mean, we all know HR is kind of the bane of our existence, one of the toughest parts of our companies that we manage. What do you think goes wrong with when you're scaling like that, scaling too big? Is it just losing oversight of some of the folks? Some of them are really dialed in, know their job, know their numbers, but others aren't maybe as meticulous or as attention to detail oriented. And that's where you kind of get into trouble. And that's where those margins start squeezing down.
Yeah. Having 13 designers and being myself as a designer, I can say this. That's like trying to get 13 cats to walk the same direction. It's tough.
Herding cats. We've all heard that.
It's herding cats. It is. And it's tough. And some great people there, but you didn't see, if you had maybe 1 or 2 people that were skimming off clients that were your leads, you didn't have the oversight because we had some people that were, we had a couple people in there that I caught taking leads that we had. The project got sold, but they ran it outside of our books. Because these were 1099 people back when you could do this, where they were all independent contractors. They worked from home. I had a sales office that had a showroom in it that was small because we were kind of the no showroom kind of thing and keeping our budget tight. But you couldn't really monitor them as well. So there was a lot of trust. But those errors, when they happen in kitchen and bath, when they're big, they're big.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, a kitchen shows up with the wrong door style or the wrong stain color. I think we had that only happen once, which was good because we had some heavy duty checks on it. But still, when you lose $20,000 on a project, that's $20,000 and that's a big one.
Yeah. Starts to affect the pocketbook and it's you're the one getting hit with it. And maybe your designers, they don't think about that so much. They're like, oops, sorry, boss. And you're not docking their pay for that $20K, unfortunately, for you.
No. And then you had the other problems with business. Like we were doing millions of dollars a year with some of these cabinet companies, and our growth was so big. We were always in constant discussions with them because we had a great credit rating. But when you've got, $500,000 or $750,000 in their order system for cabinetry, they're getting nervous because if I was to disappear or I was to go under, they've got a big chunk of money invested in me as well. So there was a lot of hand-holding just as we scaled the business up because, they wanted to take orders, but there was a big financial part of that as well that they wanted to make sure that we were on top of because it got so hard for them. We were a cash business. We would order the cabinets, we pay for them. Well, that got very hard for them to manage. So there was a lot of little things like that you wouldn't think of when you were starting up a business like that. But as you got bigger, it just got harder to manage, including everything from, commissions to everything else. There was a big chunk of change moving around and a lot of big dollars moving around, which, got to be a lot to manage.
Yeah. A lot of people underestimate those vendor relationships and what it takes to manage them, but just also the importance of them too, because these people are integral to the success of your company, to the success of your customer satisfaction standards. Any guidance or any kind of hot tips or it takes on how to manage those vendor relationships and to be more successful?
Yeah, it's really honesty and giving them a plan of where you want to go. Don't just come in there. And here's the thing, and this is one of the things I've noticed with design build firms, kitchen and bath firms out there that are selling cabinets and doing the remodeling. Have a small amount of cabinetry vendors. If you have probably more than 4, you're hurting yourself badly, because I'll walk into a kitchen and bath showroom for a design build company and I see that they have 8 companies. Well, guess what? You don't have great relationships with them because you don't mean enough to those companies. So when you're I was one of their top, this cabinet line, national cabinet line, I was one of their top showrooms in the country for sales. So when I called them, I got everybody I needed on the phone right then, right then. If I had been doing that and I was in their top 100, well, they're taking the call of the top 10 people, not the top, 200 or 100. So
Right.
you need to be a substantial partner with these people. And the more you water it down, the more errors you have, because every cabinet company, for instance, does it differently. And if your team has to learn 8 different rules of how they do cabinetry, you're going to start mixing things up. And that's where errors happen, and errors cost money and customer satisfaction in the end.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I don't think a lot of people think about that. They want to be able to satisfy their customers, have that variety. Oh, we can do anything custom and this and that, but they don't realize, it takes those vendor relationships, and the more cooks in the kitchen, like you said, the more there's going to be problems and errors and people bumping into each other, and it creates a lot of headaches that you don't really need if you can just really kind of focus down on the ones that really are going to provide the most business for you. And then likewise, you provide the most business back for them, and create kind of an equilibrium there where, it's a reciprocal relationship, and it's balanced.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Here's a little nugget for the people out there in this industry. If you're working with a custom shop, if you look across the entire country, over 60% of the big errors that cost people money are done by the small custom shops, not the big manufacturers. The big manufacturers have a system. It's dialed in. They can produce that thing every single time. So if you were to order a part 6 months later, it shows up exactly the same. They have those systems so dialed in. I'm an expert on a Facebook group called Ask the Cabinet Maker, and 95% of any finish or cabinetry issues is a custom shop that caused it. And I don't want to there's a lot of great custom shops out there, but there's a lot of guys out there that flunked shop class that are working in the garage, call themselves a custom cabinet maker, that are putting a lot of garbage out there. And the word custom has no meaning in quality. It just means they're not a big manufacturer doing semi-custom cabinets.
Right. Well, I think the key word that you mentioned there is systems and processes. That's, the big companies have that dialed in. And when you look at remodeling companies, the bigger the company, the more they're dialed in on their systems and processes. That's what runs everything. And it's the small remodeling companies doing, $500K or $1 million or a couple million maybe at most, but they don't have the systems and processes. Everything is kind of almost custom. Every job becomes kind of a one-off project instead of following a templated set of operational standards and processes, a system, in other words. And I think that's where a lot of small remodelers are missing that boat.
Yeah, those double checks are huge. I had rules like when we ordered a kitchen, we needed to have a door sample that was there. It was the right door style. It was the right wood species. It was the right color. And if I didn't have a customer's signature on the back of that, I was waiting to order it until I got it. So there were a lot of things like that we had to have all these approvals, and people would go, well, I need to get this going. I'm in a hurry. I don't care. We'll have a door here in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm not ordering it, because guess what? You'll be out another 8 to 10 weeks if I have to order another kitchen because you ordered the wrong color.
Right. Right.
So we had some just hard rules that no matter what, we didn't break them. And the other thing is, I realized too, is if I didn't say no to a handful of projects each year, that was a big mistake, because there's a lot of people out there that are really good clients that you can work with. And there's ones out there you kind of want your competitors to work with.
Right. Send a headache to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, more than once in my cabinetry career did I send them over to somebody else that might be a good fit, And I would get a call back and say, hey, I'd have an attorney call me the next year. Did you talk to these people? Yeah. Well, I'm representing this firm and we're in a lawsuit, and I had just went, wow, I'm out of here,
Wow.
and so many times that, in my rule of thumb, when you're running any kind of a remodeling company or a kitchen and bath firm, if you're working with a client, anything in this whole, contractor space, if you're working through the quoting process and it's going badly, it's never going to get better. That's the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
You haven't had a job delay. You haven't had something show up broken from a shipper, and if it's not perfect there, it gets pretty crazy. So that's the time that you go, wow, this is difficult. Do you need that job? And how bad do you need it? And how much is it going to cost you by saying
How much
yes
will it
and taking
ultimately
it?
cost you in the end? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with a kitchen and bath remodeler back in the Philly area, and she just, she won't take on those jobs. She's like, give me enough qualified leads and I can pick and choose the jobs I want because I've only got so much bandwidth. I've only got so many jobs left in my career. I want to work with people that I enjoy working with, that are going to be fun, that I'm going to enjoy being out there every day or every week on that job. And she's like, those people that you just, like you said, you kind of see them coming a mile away. That if they're like this in the honeymoon period, wait till you get married. And then, like you said,
Yeah.
it really blows up.
Yeah. Those are the people that you're going to have the biggest struggles with. And saying no is a good thing sometimes because that
Yeah.
gives you the opportunity to take on those beautiful, wonderful clients that you mess with. And sometimes it's not that they're bad people, but their personality type doesn't mesh with yours.
It's just not a good fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing bad about them. It's just not a good fit.
One of these days, I'm going to write a book probably about all the crazy client stories that I've had because, I mean, I've had everything from measuring a kitchen with basically a SWAT team sitting there, holding, AR-15s as I measure, and they had to do a bomb sniff around my car just to get into the compound, to having to call the police on a client on stuff that was going on the project. So it's been
Wow.
crazy over the, 30 plus years of doing stuff for the wild stuff that I've seen and the craziest client requests.
Yeah, I bet. So now you've become this media personality, Eric G. Everyone up in the Pacific Northwest knows you. You've got a TV show, getting ready to produce another show. I'm sure you've got even more stories to tell. But how did that come about to really come to fruition from that little boyhood dream and watching this old house to here you are now, like one of the most sought after personalities up in your area and most knowledgeable as well.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was kind of funny because probably, I think it was about 17 years ago, thanks to memories on Facebook, it reminded me that I got asked by a couple people. I was living in the Seattle area and I was up there. I was, doing my stuff. And I had some friends at the time that had radio shows that were doing home improvement radio shows on the weekends up there. Well, they'd want to go on vacation or they'd have, graduation to go to or something. And so I was doing fill-in for those guys. Oh yeah, I'll come in and co-host with you and then do a fill-in the next week or whatever. And I was doing that a lot when I was in Seattle. And then, I went through that huge, massive court deal with my ex-business partners. That blew up. I ended up getting hurt. And I went, Seattle and the whole area was so hard to do business in on a big scale because of traffic. I went, my best friend lives in Portland. I'm going to move to Portland. And so once I got healed up enough after my hospital stay, I ended up coming down to Portland and moved in with one of my best friends from high school who had this big house and he was a single guy. So moved in there and I said, I'm going to start up my own kitchen and bath business, just myself, nobody else, just going to be a single guy doing it and just keep it busy enough. And I said, well, how's the best way to do it? Advertise on radio, because that worked really well for me, advertising and talk radio. So I did that, advertised in the local home improvement radio show on the weekend. They asked me to come in and Handyman Bob, and the show was Around the House with Handyman Bob. And I came in and he was like, wow, you're really good on the radio. ever want to be a co-host, let me know. And I went, let's do it. So within a year, I was co-hosting with him and his amazing wife, Lynn. It was so funny. The first time I met her after I'd said I was going to be co-host, it was like the next day or two at a big, I think it was a NARI event or whatever we were at. She comes up, gives me a big hug and goes, Eric, I'm so happy you're coming on with Bob. With his retirement coming up and getting out of radio, it's great. But I hadn't had that conversation yet. So I was like, okay. And so it was so funny. I just kind of smiled, thanks, and just kind of kept that in my back pocket and went, well, I can see where this is heading. And we were on, this was 11, 12 years ago. And we started podcasting when I came on because, it was a thing, but there were no podcast hosts really. So I actually started putting the radio show. We recorded the radio show and put it on SoundCloud and just stuck it up there and, episode this. And that's where we started podcasting. Well, within a year, I had the show. We were on about 4 or 5 Pacific Northwest radio stations. And I decided to take it nationally, got a national syndication, took it from there. And I've blown it up now. And all of a sudden, we start getting into radio and podcasting, and that takes off. And then later on, I jump into television.
And so you were working for what the Fox News network up there in the PNW and doing a show with them, right?
Yeah. So what happened is I had been doing, I took that radio TV production class for a year and a half in high school, and back in the Tri-Cities of Eastern Washington, and took that program. Was really cool. And one of the guys I took the program with that I went to high school was a photog for Fox 12 here in Portland, Oregon, the local, Fox station, not Fox News, but the guys who watch The Simpsons on. Okay. And, that. And all of a sudden he called me up. I was actually getting tattoo work done on a Friday night at like 8:00. And he calls me and he's like, hey, man, they're doing a lifestyle show weekdays. Do you want to be a home improvement expert for it on TV? And I'm like, sure. He goes, okay, cool. Call you next week. Hung up. And I'm like, I think I just got a TV gig. It was like a 25-second conversation. Okay, cool. Okay, talk next week. See ya. And I started doing segments. I knew I wanted to do some TV. I just wanted to be really good at it. And the only way to do it is just like anything, you got to do the reps. You got to get the time. And so I did that for like 5 years, just every other week or so doing a segment that would go on that lifestyle show.
On that show, do you focus on more do-it-yourself kind of remodeling, or are you also catering to remodelers and teaching them some tips and tricks along the way, as well as the end customer?
So for that one, it was a lifestyle show that was really consumer focused on television. But about that time, I had the radio, I was doing a little more TV, and that's when I actually started my speaking gig about that time. And that's where I could talk to, the NHB folks and NKBA, and I was doing a lot of seminars, and I was either teaching virtual reality design, and getting into that, other design tips that way. I was doing smart home stuff as, the NHB's, I was basically their smart home tech guy, teaching that to teaching people how to run remodeling firms. And so I was doing all that around the country. I was in Florida. I'd be up in Boston, Las Vegas for the big shows, Orlando for a couple different shows. And so I was all over the country doing stuff. And that was a real fun time of talking and connecting and starting to share some of my knowledge of, 30 plus years doing this.
Right. Now, you're kind of a staple out at the NKBA NHB Expo they do out in Vegas or in Orlando coming up in 2026. But you're kind of a staple there, and on their voices of the industry, as well as the smart tech and technology and all that. Right. You usually speak out there almost every year, if not every year.
I do. This year, I'm not going to do it. I didn't actually do it last year. Here's what I ran into, and I loved doing it, and I haven't been doing it as much because when I go to these shows, when they hire you for the whole show. And so I would do 16 seminars in 3 days that were all different. I never get to see the show. And so
Right.
My audience would be like, hey, how was the show? And I'm like, I don't know. I just stared at contractors all day teaching.
Yeah.
And so it actually hurt a lot of the stuff that I was doing, because I'd go to this great show that had all the new products in the industry, and I had an hour to go look at it. And you can't walk that show and see everything in 3 days. And so, it's millions of square feet of products. And I had to kind of make a choice of, okay, do I want to continue education, or do I really need to steer into what I'm supposed to be doing, is letting builders, contractors, and homeowners know of the best products for their homes and how to use them and how to best use them and all those processes. So I pivoted more away from the speaking stuff. I'm going to be doing a little bit more of that. But especially with the television show, I knew I couldn't do it, because even though I'd be on stage for 3 days, there was 8 months of meetings beforehand that you had to get through. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it all by myself.
Right. Yeah, those shows are, like you said, you can't walk it in 3 days, much less try to an hour or two, because we usually set up a booth out there and meet a lot of folks, and I enjoy that, and we get to talk to a lot of folks, but there are so many cool products, and we don't get to see it. I'm like, every now and then I'll try to disappear and say, hey, I'll be back in an hour, but there's just so many cool products that you miss out on. You don't get to see even half the show. And I think your platform now with the TV and the radio, you can actually explore these products and kind of go through a detailed walkthrough of how the product works, what maybe it does better than the existing product. I think it's a lot better platform for you to really get more information out to remodelers and builders, it seems.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's one of those things that I had to do. It was, I love getting up there, talking on stage and doing that stuff. But this is a relationship business. And every year, for instance, I go over to the Toto toilet and sink and bathtub booth, meet up with the vice president or president of the company. I interview them, I show stuff, I talk to them what's new. And I would get so much out of those relationships and just finding out where's the industry heading, what's new. And that was such a big deal. I was like, I got to do more of that, not less of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So your show kind of runs the gamut. Like you do, like I've seen some of your episodes where you're grilling hamburger tacos and things like that. But you're also on the other end of the spectrum doing, like that smart home tech that just seems, beyond a lot of people's, capabilities. They just don't understand how technology works. Like pretty much a wide gamut of stuff that you're presenting on your show, right?
Yeah, the radio show and podcast is one thing, but on TV, for instance, how I developed the show is, at first, that was a mistake. And you learn, I had to do an hour of TV show that I signed up for every week for 52 weeks. And I only had one guy from the TV station that helped produce it. I had another assistant producer that would help make phone calls and do some of the odds and ends paperwork. And he was valuable, but really, it was two of us doing an hour TV show every week. And so we were the leanest television show in the history of television, doing a 1 hour show out there in the country, because you couldn't do it with two people, let alone, we should have had like 5. And so we did that for, 100 plus episodes, and then went back to a half-hour show. And so what we do, and this was the kind of the fun of it, is we'd go out and do, in the half-hour show, our first segment of the show was visiting a significant house. Maybe it's that one that everybody in the neighborhood would drive by and go, man, I love that house. I wonder what it looks like inside. So we try to answer those questions for people. And then I would talk to different companies, from wholesalers to remodelers to design build people to architects. And then that was kind of the middle of the show. And the end of the show is me either cooking or doing a more DIY or design project. That could be even multiple segments, helped a couple, these two girls go through and remodel and do a kind of a fluff and buff on their kitchen. Was one of the last ones we did on the TV show, where they painted the kitchen, added new hardware, took down some cabinets, put up floating shelves. And so kind of show people how you could do some stuff to your kitchen to upgrade it for, under $2,000, for instance.
Right. Do you have on your show? Do you have like a call-in capability where remodelers or end consumers can call in and ask for tips or how to get through a project they're stuck on, anything like that?
I don't anymore, and here's the problem: when you go national, and this is one of the secrets of home improvement out there. If you look at the other guys that do call-in shows, most of the time, those call-in shows are done during the week. People will call into a number, they leave a message, the producer calls them back, they interview them, they cut and paste that and put that in the middle of the show. It's not
Okay.
your traditional call-in show. Because, for instance, I'm running in Hawaii at one time, and I'm running in the Hamptons at another time.
Right.
So I'm in 5 time zones across the US right now. And so if I'm all of a sudden, if I'm doing a live type call-in, I've got something either running at 4:00 in the morning in Hawaii, or it's running at 9:00 in the evening on Saturday night in New York. And so the bigger the show, the harder that is to do. And so really I get email questions in, and I'll bring people on the show. I do have a phone number, but it's one of those things that's so hard because I don't want to sit there and cut and paste and make something that's inauthentic. And I'm not trying to say bad about some of these other shows, but they lead you to believe that it's a regular call-in show.
Yeah.
It's
Like
not.
the
It
old
cuts-
days in radio. It's not
It's
that.
not that. It's not that. We did that when I came on, when I was doing it live, and it was local. It was really easy to do because we were on live across the radio. It was super fun. We had a great time with that. But when you go national, it's so much harder because of time zones. And yeah, I could be running on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what station has it and which market. And so really the best way to do that that's reliable is to pre-record that and get it out there. I just didn't want to have people calling in, talking to my producer. And then as soon as that airs, these people are like, oh, well, I never actually got to talk to him.
Right.
You know, I didn't
Like-
talk to that guy. I talked to the producer, but it now sounds like we were chatting and you weren't.
Yeah.
So-
Like you said, it's inauthentic.
Yeah, I just went, no, I'm not going to do that. And I get lots of email questions that come in off our website. And so I go that route. And I love helping both remodelers to builders. And it's funny, a lot of that has changed over to social media where we do stuff on certain groups over there. There's a lot more of those type of things. And that's really kind of changed how people look at how YouTube has changed how people do things.
Oh yeah. Go to YouTube, learn anything you want from how to, hang a shelf to picking a guitar and everything in between. It is amazing.
One of the biggest problems, though, and I think this is one of the things that we have to watch out for as professionals out there, there are people out there that give off wrong home improvement advice for the clicks.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just
so
after
they
clicks.
specifically do this. So they'll go on, they'll show you kind of the first half of it right, or let's say a 50%, which when I was in school, if I got 50% on a test, that was an F, but
Yeah.
they'll give that, and the rest of it, they're trolling the electricians, the plumbers, the contractors to go, what are you doing? That's
Yeah.
not how you do it.
Yep.
And they get all the comments, that pushes them up. They get people fighting on there. That's engagement, and they make money off of that. And the problem that I see is the homeowner or even the contractor that has a new product that they've never seen in their market before has to weed through that.
Yeah. 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 I was talking about that with a buddy trying to, thinking about business ideas and do it yourself kind of stuff and going to YouTube and there's just so much garbage on there. And like you said, a lot of wrong advice, people trolling for those clicks and engagement. Or you're just going through video after video after video, just trying to find the situation that's more specific to you. And it could really be a headache. And not only could you get wrong advice, but you spend hours trying to do that. So it's not the best platform, although it's a great platform and certainly more than we had back in the day. And it's YouTube owned by Google, and so there's some conflicts of interest there, and Google just trying to beef up YouTube as a search engine as well. So a lot to look out for that people really aren't aware of.
Especially when it comes into building science and that kind of stuff. And I've been on the stage and worked with a lot of the name brand people you see out there that contractors rely on building science. So I've been in those classes. I've assisted in teaching those things. I understand it. And 65% of the stuff on YouTube right now on building science is incorrect in some way because they'll get one part of it right, but the next part they get wrong. And I think that's where we run into some big issues. And when it comes to that stuff, you really need to be talking to the right experts to talk about that, and really probably not relying on YouTube for that, because, that could get sketchy.
Yeah. Well, and codes and specs are so different from municipality to state. You just can't rely on that being universal, and people they don't tell you that, and in the video that you're watching.
They could be in Canada, and
Yeah.
those codes don't exist there. I mean, I think it was in Canada, if I remember right. Watching like some of those TV shows out there that are produced in Toronto, and I'm like, why are they putting 3-tab on that roof without tar paper? What? No, that's added if you want to go beyond the code. Back then, they didn't have code that said you had to put tar paper up. You could
Right.
just throw the 3-tab right on the plywood. It was like,
Yep.
wow. Okay, so those are things you just got to be really careful of where that's coming from. And you're right, there's areas in the country that don't have building code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do what you want. And what's ironic is then you have those remodelers and builders in that going, that's how I do it. I've done it for 30 years. And you can look at it and go, well, you've done it wrong for 30 years, but you've done it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's tough. And there's so many great people out there in our industry that are so knowledgeable. It's just really hard to find which one is knowledgeable and which one's not. And looking at how many people are following them is not a great way to do it, because there's some people out there that have lots of followers that are really bad sources for good information.
Yeah. Well, now we've got AI in our world, and AI is great, and it's gonna change the world, revolutionize a lot of industries. But there's also a lot of bad information, that comes out of AI as well. And I was using it this past week and do financial analysis, and I said, well, what about doing it this way? And it's like, oh, great catch, Bob. Yeah, change your formula to that. And I was like, what? I'm not supposed to catch that. You're supposed to give that to me. But are you using AI a lot in your business now, or what ways are you using it?
AI can be great, and it's not. A lot of people go, "Whoa, that's scary." The wall comes up, and
Yeah.
the problem that I see with AI is it relies solely on the web content to come up with its answers.
Yep.
So if I was to use AI to find myself, it's pulling stuff off my website. That's awesome. But I created that stuff on the website. That's my opinion of things, right? If
Yeah.
I am wrong about something that I put on my website, it now is putting it out there as the gospel of AI. And so, again, we're back into that again. Where AI makes a lot of sense to me is in audio editing, video editing, that kind of stuff, where, I could take a podcast like this, throw it into one of my AI programs, and clean it up. I can take any pauses, instantly shorten them up. I can go through and take stumbles and ums and ahs and likes and things like that out and clean that all up. And it makes it so much easier. It saves me hours on some of those, what I would call tedious stuff that I have to do in the day of editing and doing stuff. That's where it really helps. I think it can also help if you're having to write a difficult letter to a client that you want to be smooth, you want to be informational, but you want to be, judicial with it and how you're saying it. That can help you take your emotion out of it. I think there's some good things with that when you're maybe firing a subcontractor and you just don't want to tell him to get lost, but you want to kind of do it, in a clean way. Throw it in AI and say, hey, can you help me write this? This is what I want to do. And the secret to using any of these AI programs, and this is the dangerous part, so there's a little asterisk here, log in so it knows that you're talking. It will learn off the other things that you've put in there.
Yeah.
And so if I put in that I'm going to create this production company that I'm working on now, it now uses all of the other searches that gets added into the database. And so I'll ask a question. 10 questions later, it's going to go back and say, well, you said you were trying to do this, and now they put that information in. So it's like you're having a conversation with someone in a way, because it's taking into account all the prior conversations you've had to help with that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just gave that example. I was talking to someone just an hour ago, and I had to fire somebody, and I sat down to type the email, and you start overthinking it, and then you write something, then you erase that, and I thought, you know what, just feed this into AI, and 10 seconds later, it had a nice little email that was diplomatic, courteous, but just said, listed the reasons for the termination, and we're moving on. And, instead of taking 30 minutes or 45 minutes to write the perfect email, it took 10 seconds. that,
Yeah.
that was it. It took more time to feed in the scenario than it took to get the output.
And I use it for training myself too. When I'm writing a magazine article or something, I will go in and I'll write it out how I want to put it. I'll say, how can I make this a little more conversational? I won't take that and cut and paste it, but I'll take it and go, oh, that's an interesting way to say that. And then I'll revise mine to do that, to kind of go down there and go, oh, that's a better way to say that sentence. And I'll put it into my words and do that. So I've used it for editing and things like that as well. It can be really cool. And tell you what, if you're starting a business today, you can jump on there and create your own business plan in 30 minutes versus 30 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw an example on X the other day. Grant Cardone said, I'm creating a new business model, and he listed out specs, and it was just 2-3 sentences, and he's like, write me a business plan, Grok, which is the AI model on X. And I thought, here's Grant Cardone. This dude's worth 9 figures and has this massive real estate empire, sales training, and he's going on to Grok to say, write me a business plan. And I don't think most people just don't realize the capabilities of AI for yourself, for your business, any aspect of your business, redoing your SOPs, your operational documents, or listening to your sales calls. And do you have a good presentation? What are you doing wrong in that presentation? Or listening to your call center reps that are, taking those calls. Are they really doing a good job? It's mind blowing what AI can do. And I think most people are still missing out on that.
Well, just AI note takers now on a Zoom meeting or a Teams call, you can put that plug-in in there. And all of a sudden you come back and you've got the full thing written out there of all the bullet points. What are your to-do buttons? It's all the things you need. It's like you had an assistant in there that was just writing everything down perfectly.
Yeah.
Use it to save yourself time.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to ever replace the contractor. It's not going to ever replace the designer in my lifetime. But I think when you look at it out there, it's got its place, and you might as well use it because it's going to make you more efficient in the right places. But you just have to not trust all the data when you're asking it to use things that are maybe subjective.
Yeah.
Math is great. If there's rules, awesome. It will follow that. But if you're getting into subjective stuff like design, things like that, it could get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
Quickly.
You got to take it with a grain of salt. Take the suggestion, twirl it around in your brain a little bit and see if you like it or if there are options, but don't just take it as the true word, the true gospel. You have to, it's like the content when people say, write me a blog. You can't just take that blog and say, great, and slap it on your website. You've got to rewrite it. You've got to massage it and put it in your own voice, your own brand voice and tone. And I think that's where a lot of remodelers mess up because they're like, oh, it could just write all my blogs for me. And Google has taken down millions and millions of blogs every day because it's just garbage, just flooding the internet. And Google says, we just don't care about that. We're de-indexing that page. It's irrelevant. No one really wants to read that garbage.
And how is that helping you when you're trying to get traffic, right?
Yeah.
The other thing it's good to do too is if you're writing YouTube descriptions or video things like that, where you want to go in and what's the best way to do this that's SEO optimized? All of a sudden it's writing that. And so that can be really helpful as well. Cause you'll go, oh yeah, that's a good keyword.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that can help you, when you're trying to do your social media stuff and any of that. And again, I think that's one of the things that I see that is really tough for the overall remodel and building community out there. So many companies don't market, and then they get themselves in trouble and they spend so much money on things, hiring some big agency that has no idea what they're doing, that doesn't help them. And it's so sad sometimes looking at it. So many simple things could be accomplished in marketing if you stopped, slow down, said, okay, this is where I'm headed. This is what I want to do. And sometimes going onto these big lead generation sites aren't the answer for you. And now you're getting leads that are with 6 other competitors out there.
Right.
Many times just doing your business right will let you market your business so much better. I mean, I had stuff that we did for years that still most contractors, remodeling contractors, don't do out there. I would go over, once we had the contract signed, I would go over there and get the addresses, the names of the neighbors. I would send them a letter and say, hey, we're going to be remodeling over here. If you have any problems at all, this is my personal cell number. Get a hold of me. We'll make sure that those issues are taken care of. You might see a dumpster over there. You might see a truck. If we're blocking, if something happens, please call me. We'll take care of it. Well, guess what? Those houses were probably all built about the same time.
Yeah.
Somebody in that neighborhood right there probably needs a kitchen or bath or a roof or whatever else, whatever you're working on.
Yep.
What not a better lead generation to do that? And then the other stuff I would do when I would do a whole kitchen for somebody, I would schedule a follow-up appointment about 350 days later before a warranty would run out. I'd go over and walk through them and people are like, oh, I don't want to go do needless warranty stuff. No, it's not that at all. They've paid for that project. They had a good experience. You're in there maybe fine-tuning a cabinet, you're doing a little touch-up, but hey, why don't you come take a look at this bathroom since you're here? Now you've got a whole new project.
Yep.
Most of those times led to either a great referral or the next project within the house, and they just hadn't had a chance to call you yet.
Yeah. You're out there as a reminder, stay in front, top of mind for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I also would sit there and have business cards, and I would put on, the project name on the back of the card and say, hey, for your client, here's a percentage off if you refer us. But you have to give them this card. And so I'd get the card. I could see who it came from. I had one guy that I did a kitchen for in about, probably 6 years. That one kitchen got me about $500,000 in projects.
Wow.
One kitchen. Because he was a financial guy. He had new client events at his house, wine tasting events at his house with new clients on Fridays. Well, who did your kitchen? He came in and, hey, I'm going to do my media room. And it was like $5,000 or $6,000 of the cabinets, and go through the whole process. Everything else. He goes, all right, place the order. What do I owe you? Nothing. I got you. I'm paying for your cabinets, man. Your contractor will put them in. Cabinets are free. Well, no, I'm paying for them. I'm like, no, dude, you've given me so much business. There's your referral.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Wow. That's great.
So he was a great part of our business,
Yep.
for years. We always had a project that was a referral of his. So really doing that, marketing starts at home first.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. People miss those small little touches, those opportunities that you're always thinking, like you said, of the lead gen companies or doing your SEO or maybe doing radio or TV ads. But you miss that personal touch, that relationship marketing. Referrals are the absolute best leads you will ever get in your business. They're going to close at the highest rate of any type of marketing.
And another thing is I got aggressive on my marketing. I was running those radio ads in Seattle, and I had one of the bigger competitors. It was a lumberyard chain that sold cabinets. They were out giving a free Traeger away with each kitchen purchase. And I'm like, okay, that's going to hurt our business a little bit. So what did I do? I heard that ad in the morning. By 3 hours later, I was down at the radio station cutting a new ad saying, our prices are so good, we don't have to give you a barbecue to feel good about your purchase. That ad was down the next day because we were, hey, our prices are so good every day. We don't have to give you a barbecue to make you feel good about your purchase. Come see us for the best pricing. I just absolutely killed their marketing campaign. I had a company that was on my radio show that was like the pest control company was probably the best description for them, and crawl space company. They didn't have money to put wraps on their trucks. So my marketing campaign was, these guys are discreet. We're not going to let your neighbors know you have a mouse or rat problem. and they were just white vans that pulled up, and so we marketed that saying, hey, and our vans are discreet. We're not going to let your neighbors know that you've got a rodent problem, and you take it and embrace it, and it's memorable.
Yeah, I like it. Some good tips there. Eric, as we kind of start winding down our interview, tell me what's ahead for you and your new show that you're going to be producing yourself.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing the, our TV show here was Around the House Northwest. We did it for about 2.5 years here in Portland, and we wrapped that up here a month and a half or so ago, and we're going to be doing Around the House Northwest again. Instead of on one station, we're going to be on 5 or 6. We're kind of putting that together. And then you'll be able to catch that on the TV in the Pacific Northwest here. And then we're going to roll that out nationally with other markets as we go. So there'll be other markets around the U.S., major markets that will do basically a local feeling show for you that's going to show homes in your neighborhood and that kind of stuff. So you'll be able to catch that on YouTube and then streaming later on.
Okay, cool. I'm excited for the show. Can't wait to follow it and follow along with your success. Are you available for speaking gigs or any kind of consulting? Are people able to reach you? How would they do that?
Absolutely. You can message me. Just head over to my website over at aroundthehouseonline.com. Real simple. You can find me over there. Send me a message. Goes right into my inbox. All those come right into me. So I love working with remodeling companies, different contractors out there, speaking gigs, that kind of stuff. I've done keynote speakers all across the country for stuff. And it's a lot of fun doing that kind of stuff because I love educating people and basically helping them grow their business.
Yeah. Yep. Paying it forward, just kind of giving back to the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been fun. I got to be friends with the guys at this old house and those guys over there. So those full circle moments feel good. And when I can turn around and help somebody better their business with just helping them steer the ship a little bit better, they're experts of their own company, but giving them some tips and tricks to make it easier and more profitable, everybody wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more experience that you bring, you've been in this for 35 plus years, and, a lot of guys haven't, the younger guys that are still, up and coming. There's so much to learn and being able to be mentored by people like you, whether it's consulting, watching, your videos, speaking gigs, your new show that you're going to be producing, whatever it may be, you're a voice of the industry and an expert and someone to really turn to. So it's great having people like you in the industry and being a part of it and being an inspiration for so many others out there. Really cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And man, your show is so good for the people out there too, that are trying to elevate their game, and what a great resource for them as well. So, always fun to play a part in that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Eric, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot. Great interview with you. Some really great insights. I look forward to staying in touch with you, following your show's success, and having you back on the show sometime in the future. But thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate having you, brother.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, Bob. This is a great time as always, and I can't wait for next time we can dive in even deeper.
All right. That sounds great. For everyone else out there listening, thanks a lot for tuning in, turning on today. Glad to have you, and we'll look forward to seeing you and hearing from you on the next episode of the Home Remodeler Toolbox. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
Hey, if you liked our podcast, join the remodeling community and hit subscribe. We would love to hear from you. So be sure to share your thoughts on what you might want to hear about in future episodes. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit homeremodelerSEO.com and check out our services that can help build your foundation for success. Thanks for tuning in to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.